Hi, welcome to Fun with the Science Club. In this segment, we will look at regional scientists and highlight their work in the Caribbean. And today we have with us Dr. Avril Williams, an inorganic chemistry lecturer at University of the Cape campus in the Faculty of Science and Technology. Hi, Dr. Williams.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for interviewing me today.
I hope that you're having a good time. And one of the main questions a lot of students have to ask is, at what age did you decide that science was the career choice for you?
I think that's hard, Nigel. I think that it probably would have been when I entered secondary school. I do remember at primary school wanting to be a teacher. So, having all the novels and stuff on the bed and walking around and actually teaching the books, writing on the mirror of the wardrobe. But I think it's when I entered secondary school and we actually started to do labs, and as a result, especially with chemistry, mix stuff, see different colors, that I became interested in science, and it has essentially taken me up to this point. Not necessarily the science that I'm doing now, which is chemistry, but it was all science.
Okay, that is very good. Similar to my experience, and since you're doing chemistry, which, as you say, has a lot of fun color changes, what is one of your favorite experiments that you've ever done?
Interestingly, I like the experiment where we show that oxygen, which is the air that we breathe in every day, the air that is required to live, is actually magnetic. So a lot of students don't know this, and it's really a cool experiment. The first thing we have to do is we have to liquefy the oxygen. So we do that by using liquid nitrogen to cool it down until it becomes a liquid. And then the liquid is actually blue, which is also interesting. And then if you have the liquid oxygen in like a test tube or even a beaker, and you move a bar magnet on the outside of the test tube, you actually see the liquid oxygen following the magnet. A pretty cool experiment.
Yes, I remember that experiment. I saw it once as well, and it was interesting to say the least, especially when the oxygen turned blue.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so also, is there any scientist which you look up to?
Yes, there is, we can always talk about the scientists who came first because, I like to recognize them because they laid the groundwork. So, Marie Curie, you had Einstein, you had Pasteur, you had Newton, all of them in their day. But in present day, I would say that the scientist that I most admire is one of my past supervisors, in fact, one of my past PhD supervisors, Professor Emmanuel Iwoha. The reason why I really do have admiration for him is because of the obstacles that he has overcome. So he's a brilliant chemist, and he has been able to work with, and I don't want to say overcome, but overcome apartheid.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, and be successful. So essentially, he still works in what we would term a racially hostile environment, but he has been able to conquer that and to be a really prolific chemist and to actually be a very nice person at the end of the day.
Yes, that's a very admirable scientist, I would admit. And he's also a chemist, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
A physical chemist.
Oh, physical chemist. Yes. Actually, I thought that you were going to say it would be Professor Stoddard, who you worked with, who last year in 2016 received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. But since you worked with him, and he works on nanotechnology, supermolecular chemistry, nanotechnology, right? How would you describe your experience working with him? Because I know you're also a scientist in that field of study as well.
That's correct. And usually, you know, I would have said that he's the scientist that I most admire, but he's the second.
Okay, yeah.
He's the second in the list.
I expected that.
I think Professor Iwoha just tips him because of the fact of the sort of challenges that he had to go through, and it's something that we also, being black, also have to deal with on a regular basis. But working with Professor Stoddart, what can I say? Another brilliant chemist. I've been so lucky in that regard. Another brilliant chemist, but working with him was so different. So I came from the Caribbean, where we have a very laid-back attitude when it comes to everything. And then I was deposited at that time at UCLA, where Professor Stoddart was. And the work ethic is so different. It was go, 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 hardly any downtime. But the good thing is that I learned a lot, because I learned how to manage my time. I learned how to put my thoughts or take my thoughts, which were ideas, and be able to bring it into the lab and come up with a tangible result. He taught me about the importance of presentation. He also taught me how to write grants, how to get money, how to know where to publish, essentially, and the fact that you have to work hard and harder. Yes. But the interesting thing was, working in his lab, you hardly ever saw him. Of course, being the stature, the stature that he had, and being the type of person that he had, he was extremely busy, always out of the country, giving invited lectures, attending conferences and stuff. So essentially you were left on your own after a while, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because then you gain independence and you learn to depend on yourself, essentially. So in a way, I think that at the core of me, he was really, really helpful in developing me as a chemist, but more so as an academic.
Yes, that is very, yes, that is very, very admirable of him, and I understand what it means to work by yourself, because my first job was working by myself, and you learn to depend on yourself a lot.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yes, it's not. It really makes you mature fast.
Yes. Yeah.
I know we mentioned what his work entails, supermolecular chemistry, and its links to nanotechnology. Most students, most people don't understand what nanotechnology or supermolecular chemistry is. Would you briefly give them an outline of the work he does?
So Professor Stoddart is involved in supramolecular chemistry first, and most students do not encounter supramolecular chemistry until you're in like your final year of your degree program, or even a little later on when you start postgraduate work. But supramolecular chemistry is essentially about the interactions of molecules that are not permanently connected together. So it's like we take a molecule A and a molecule B, and because of the design of the molecules, they are naturally attracted to each other. So they come together and they form this larger, more complex molecule, which we would refer to as interlocked molecules.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is that work was ongoing into this area of supramolecular chemistry for quite a while, since the CRAM, which was a long time ago in the 1970s. But nanotechnology now is a newer field, and it just so happens that the interlocked molecules that are actually made are at the nano level. Nano meaning 10 to the minus 9 meters. So extremely small. So it just so happened that these molecules are microscopic, and therefore they fit quite nicely into the new and emerging field of nanotechnology. And we have gone quite a ways into sort of defining different areas in nanotechnology just by the supramolecular systems that have been synthesized over the years. it's quite an exciting field.
Like me, when I first encountered supermolecular chemistry, my mind was blown away by it, right? And I picked that and I only found out about it in my final year, right? And I saw so I saw the possibilities that it opens up for us scientists. So I am assuming that's your most passionate area of research, is it?
It is the one that I love the most, definitely. So I am currently involved in 2 areas of research. So there's one area which deals with sensor technology, so where we fabricate biological sensors and chemical sensors that essentially look at different toxins that can cause the spoilage of food, for instance, both animal feed and the food that we eat. Toxins, sensors that can detect different anabolites in your urine, etc. Stuff like that. The other part, which is the supramolecular chemistry, yes, I am very interested in it. I think it has a lot of potential in terms of integrating the supramolecular systems into nanotechnology such that we can develop molecules that could be used in computers, for instance, in the quantum computer, or can even be used in our human bodies, so things like valves and molecular muscles, etc., so that instead of putting later on in life, instead of replacing bones with metal, we can replace them with molecules that would tend to be less harmful to the actual human system. But of course, that's a way in the future.
Yes.
Quite a ways.
Yes, it's true. Supermolecular chemistry, when you first meet it, it's just like, this is science fiction. This is not anything. How is this even possible?
Yeah.
So do you think that is one field of science that can be really pioneered by Caribbean scientists?
Yes, but not in the Caribbean. At least, at least not yet. It is a field of science where the pure part of the science, that means working on the chemical principles, can be done in the Caribbean. But the applied part, which is usually the part that students find most exciting, the parts that you'll be able to see and bring to the public, that of course requires a lot of resources that we do not have currently in the Caribbean. So, it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Sort of thing. But I would think that if there is an area of science that we should be able to do really well in the Caribbean, it would be information technology. Because I think that it's quite feasible to create the new knowledge there that we can then sell to fund other endeavors such as the supramolecular chemistry. Yeah, I think that definitely that's something that can be done in the Caribbean quite easily. However, anything that has to be done in the Caribbean dealing with science requires a paradigm shift of the culture of the Caribbean, because I would say most Caribbean countries do not see the importance of science. If you ask the average person out there on the road about science, they will tell you they don't know a lot and they don't think it's important. There's no will to go out there and find scientific information.
Yes, that is so very true.
Yeah. Sad but true, because I truly believe that's the only way that we can dig ourselves out of the hole that we are currently in and get to first world status.
I remember when I was doing my project in my final year, it was also on supermolecular chemistry, and you told me one of the hindrance is because the facilities are not there as yet. And you were saying because in the Caribbean there's too much moisture in the air that hinders supermolecular chemistry. Is that the only thing that really, apart from, like we say, people's attitude towards science, Is like the moisture in our atmosphere a real hindrance? Is that the only hindrance to supermolecular
It
chemistry?
is not the only hindrance. It's quite an important hindrance if you think about it, because in order to prepare the molecules, usually you need conditions where there's no water.
Yes.
That is almost impossible in the Caribbean to achieve. But outside of that, in terms of our facilities, yes, we do have a lot of work to do in bringing our facilities up to par. The University of the West Indies has tried. We do have the instrumentation, for the most part, littered across the 3 campuses. But again, it's all about maintaining the instruments, made so that it's available when you actually need it, because people have to realize that we're competing worldwide. So whereas someone in a first world country has everything at their fingertips, we don't have that. We are separated by water, etc. So it takes a much longer time for us to get whatever we need to do done. But I would say that when it comes to the ideas part of it, we got that.
Yes, I do believe that.
Definitely.
Ideas. Right. So I think you answered this question when you talked about information technology being used to improve our Caribbean economy. Is there any more that you need to add to that you would like to add to that?
Not really, except to say that we need to stop being consumers of technology, and we need to start being the creators of technology. So a lot of our young people have our smartphones, and which has a lot of apps and stuff like that. We need them to stop thinking about going to iTunes or YouTube, Google Store, or wherever it is, to download an app and start coming up with ideas as to what app can I design? How do I go about designing an app? When I have designed the app, how do I get it on the platforms where other people can purchase it? And so that at that point in time, I can then generate an income from doing that. As I said, I think it's the easy step. It's the low-hanging fruit that we can push forward at this point in time. And as such, based on the results of that, we should have a change in how people approach science. And then not just be, the little nerd in the lab coat, in the lab at all hours.
Yes, that is so true. But science is fun.
It is. I love it.
And it's not just for nerds.
No, it isn't. I am not a nerd.
Me neither. Yeah. So since there's this big stigma to scientists being nerds, right? What advice would you give to any young person, not just the nerds as you call them, right? That want to pursue science to the level of PhD to the level of bachelor's or even a PhD?
I would say go for it. Forget about what people say about you. They're just jealous. Yeah. But I would say that you need to prepare your mind for the road ahead, because it's not an easy road. You are going to be frustrated, especially if you plan to pursue science in the Caribbean. Yes, there's a level of frustration that comes along with it, but there is also reward at the end. When you have done something that's new, you feel proud, it is yours, you take ownership of it. You have actually added to the knowledge that is out there, and there is no other feeling in the world that would give you that sort of, your chest just feels full and you can, yeah, you feel really good. But I would say in the end, to make it to the top of any field, science included, to have that PhD, it's all about perseverance. So there would be down times, but there are also up times. But the important thing is that you keep at it, and in the end, you will get there.
And the last question now is not really very scientific, but it's just a curious thing. Since we all live in the Caribbean and we're all trying to be one family, one united Caribbean, what is your favorite Caribbean delicacies?
So I'm a bit of a foodie.
Yes.
So I love food.
I remember.
Let me see. I can't give you one Caribbean delicacy because we're all, there are many different islands that are unique in their food. So I'm just going to give you some of my favorites. So seeing that I'm from Trinidad, I love my doubles. I love roti and callaloo. I'm going to leave Barbados for last. Grenada oil down.
Okay, never heard of that.
Jamaica jerk pork. St. Lucia lambi fritters. Lambi meaning conch, what we call conch. And Barbados, coconut bread. Fantastic.
Those are some very good foods. I especially like sweet breads too.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being part of Fun with the Science Club. And we will look forward to seeing more work from you in the future. And hopefully a follow-up interview at a later date.
No problem, Nigel. Thank you for the opportunity.